We are now just 31 days from Election Day. 31! And there is still a lot to do. That is why former President Barack Obama will hit the campaign trail for Vice President Harris next week in Pittsburgh. This is the start of a battleground tour that he is launching. As for the Vice President, well, she held events in Detroit and Flint, Michigan yesterday. While there, Harris met with voters from the Muslim and Arab communities. Her campaign is also ramping up outreach to Latino and Black voters. Here's NBA legend Magic Johnson with the vice president urging Black men to show up for the Democratic ticket.
Kamala's opponent promised a lot of things last time to the Black community that he did not deliver on. And we got to make sure we help Black men understand that.
Joining us now is MSNBC political analyst and former Maryland Congresswoman Donna Edwards.
Welcome to you, Congresswoman. So,
do you think some people could read what Magic Johnson said the wrong way? Because I don't want them to read it the wrong way. Because I do think that he was coming from an authentic place, he himself. But
what would he have read wrong?
Well, because I say that because some people, I heard some folks yesterday after this aired, the clips came out. Why is Magic Johnson trying to tell Black men what to do? And I'm like, I didn't read it like that, but.
Well, if you're taking that defensive a posture, then that proves the point that I'm about to ask. Ooh. Because there is a black male problem right now in this race. And I'm just going to put it on the table and go there. There's a tension between black men and black women in this country that no one's really addressing, and it's manifesting in this race in a way that I think is concerning. And I'm curious, because I've been talking to a number of black men and some black women about this and they all agree that this tension is there because it doesn't make sense, the excuses that are being made by some black men, a lot of black men, about not supporting her over Donald Trump. And I think that's what Magic was getting at. How do you see this playing out in that context? Because I think that there are elements there that are not being addressed. Simone addressed it in her special a little bit last week. Everybody's kind of coming at it, but they haven't nailed it yet.
It's such a big question. Look, I think there is probably a tension there between black men and black women, and some of it has to do with the perception, I don't think the reality, but the perception of black women's achievement. More black women going to college, more black women successful, the focus on the black woman vote, and that has created in itself an understandable tension. But look, I think that I believe in what Shirley Chisholm said. Not so much about race as it is about gender, and I don't think that what some black men, and it's not a lot because Kamala Harris has actually done an awful lot to bring black men home. If you look at the polling numbers, they suggest that while Joe Biden was not drawing in black men, Kamala Harris has closed that gap, and now she just needs to put a wrap on it. And I think bringing out people like President Obama, like, Magic Johnson and others is a way to do that. But it doesn't cure that understandable tension. I think it's the reason that Kamala Harris is focused on small business creation. I think it's the reason that she's focused on, building and strengthening communities, because those are things that appeal to black men. But I view this as more a gender problem than it is a race problem.
Your special was invoked, so I feel like I've got to cede the floor to you.
I was like, Lord, we starting off heavy. I can't grab my comment.
He had a donut before the show.
Oh, yeah. He brought donuts in, and this is what it was. Okay, look, our special did, it touched on this a little bit, and I think of what Minyon Moore said, who was the chair of the 2024 Democratic Convention, and she said, we have to actually dispel the myth that men, especially black men, are not going to support a woman candidate or a black woman candidate.
We're talking about margins here.
And margin, yes. And I agree agree with her. She said that you have to create people need to be able to see her as a commander-in-chief. And that is the work that the campaign has to do in addition to, the policies. People want to see policies. And she said that she believes that the campaign is doing that work. I think that you know what? Maybe this is a radical thing, but I'm not mad that, black men, some younger voters, Latino men, even some black women are saying, you know what? I need to see more because people need to earn my vote. Because for years, one could argue that the consistency at which black voters, specifically in some other demographics, have supported the Democratic Party apparatus, that consistency sometimes could be taken for granted. And I think what you are hearing a swath of people say is, look, now, in our special, we didn't find a number of younger black women or black women across the board who were Trump curious, as Melissa would like to say. But they were just like, I don't know if I'm going to vote at the top of the ticket. And I believe that given the time that is left, from a campaign perspective, you just have to meet the voters where they are. And if that's where they are, you got to meet them and earn their vote. Now, I do think that in the moratorium post, we'll see what the numbers look like. People tried to say in Georgia, remember the Stacey Abrams race? Oh, the black men didn't vote for Stacey Abrams. That was a lie. Black men did vote for Stacey Abrams. That's not why she lost that race. Y'all might want to check on some other demographics, but it wasn't black men.
Well, black men have they've already demonstrated that they're voting for Kamala Harris. And again, it really is about margin. So I think for Kamala Harris, she has to maximize the black vote. She has to do it, obviously, by earning it. But there are a couple of other demographics that she's got to peel into. Let's talk about white women. Okay,
well,
that's a different
the biggest
conversation.
Achilles heel in this race that I see, Alicia, is white suburban women are not. It's not a guaranteed vote. Let's just put it that way. I think a lot of folks assume a lot about that vote on the Democratic side. I think Donald Trump in 2016 dispelled folks of that, and then again in 2020 dispelled folks of that. So you've got these twin pillars of challenge that I think go to the core of what you're saying. It's not race necessarily as it is gender. How does America look at a woman, regardless of her race, a woman in the role as commander-in-chief of the United States Armed Forces, the federal government, and to be the leader of the free world? And I think that's the next level of the challenge that the vice president has. I think she's meeting that challenge personally, and I think she's met it on a number of scales. But I mean, how should we be looking at this election 30 days out? Are we still in that, does she really come off as a commander-in-chief? Or at some point, do we start to focus on the big orange thing in front of you that wants to be a dictator?
Right. I mean, I think her response and her campaign's response, as we know, has been to show rather than tell. For her just to show up as a commander-in-chief, for her to assume that position. I think her performance in the debate was a great example of that. I think it's part of the reason they would like to see another debate. But to your point about why aren't we focusing on Donald Trump, I think in part because what they are hearing from voters is that for people for whom Donald Trump is a motivating factor, their mind has largely been made up in one of two directions. And so now what they are trying to do is to fill the void with the voters for whom that is not enough. I want to take a listen to an ad that the campaign is running, particularly focused on black voters. But I would argue, and we'll talk about it on the other side, that the message appeals to every electorate. Take a listen.
I get it. The cost of rent, groceries, and utilities is too high. So here's what we're going to do about it. We will lower housing costs by building more homes and crack down on landlords who are charging too much. We will lower your food and grocery bills by going after price gougers who are keeping the cost of everyday goods too high. I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message because you work hard for your paycheck. You should get to keep more of it. As president, I'll make that my top priority.
Here's what I find interesting about that ad, which is that ad we know is meant to target black voters. One of the reasons we know that is because all of the people in the ad are themselves black. But you could grab that message and apply it, to your point, to to white women who still need to be persuaded, and that is the issue. When you get past style and get to substance, that's what everybody's talking about.
Well, and to Simone's point, meet the voters where they are. They're concerned about inflation. They're concerned about the cost of groceries. They're concerned about making a life for their families. You saw a family in there. You saw a family that was obviously in the suburbs in that ad. And I think, to your point, it does have a broader appeal. It puts black families, frankly, in the light that we all know. We're not a monolith, and we're just like every other family out there, concerned about the same thing.
And we do live in the suburbs.
Yes, we do live in the suburbs.
So I just want to let people know.
Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, where we did the kitchen conversation, was in the suburbs. And I know Liz Cheney and them going to Montgomery County this upcoming week. So I'm just saying, black women are in the suburbs too. Can I just note, though, that there's still work to do. I'm struck by the NAACP. They're spending $3.75 million on a radio ad. They're doing all this organizing work. There are some voters that are undecided or need to be convinced to come out. And it's not undecided between Trump and Kamala Harris. Undecided if their vote matters. And you got to speak to that, too. All
right, Donna, stick with us. Up next, Liz Cheney joins Vice President Harris on the campaign trail for the first time.